I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Hello, and welcome to Season 32, Episode 13 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Jason.
I'm Pooja.
And on today's episode, Eric from New Jersey asks how to make horror games unsettling without using gore.
Horror games.
Horror games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The single syllable's a different kind of game.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anonymous, they didn't want us to use their name, wants advice about problem player dynamics in their group.
Oh,
And
that's me.
Mini Painter Jen reflects
That's awkward.
on the power of the dice in RPGs. If you'd like to contribute a question or story to the show, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Some of you have been very kind, but we still need more emails, so please write us emails. Announcements. Our Patreon was recently completely reorganized, so visit happyjacks.org/Patreon to update your support, or if you are not a supporter, to see if any of the tiers tempt you to start supporting our community. So there's a bunch of new stuff. I just actually dropped some new shirt options for Patreons only, and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. Check it out. Gateway 2023 is happening at the LAX Hilton on September 1st through the 4th, and we will be there. We're going to have...
That's like a month away.
Yeah, I know.
That's not, not even.
Yeah.
It's like we're 1 week into
Jesus
August already.
Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will have a booth of, like, as seen on Happy Jacks, where we'll be selling games and other stuff, different people. We'll be doing our live show on Saturday night if you want to join us, and we will, of course, be running a bunch of games. You can go to strategicon.net to buy a badge, sign up. If you run a couple games, they give you a free badge. It's like super great. So again, that's Gateway 2023. You go to strategicon.net. All right, it is now August, which I am very happy to announce a new Indie Designer of the Month, but it means I am 1 week away from going back to school. Yeah. Anyway, the Indie Designer for August is our very good friend, Rob Abear. And he is a good friend of ours. He's been on the show, especially at the live shows at the conventions. You can hear him
Yeah.
loudly heckling at times. Somewhat
We
drunkenly.
jokingly refer to people as friend of the show, but actual friend,
friend of the show.
Rob Abear.
Yeah. You can find his games at nerdypapergames.itch.io, and you can find him at Nerdy Paper Games on Blue Sky. I think that's our first official Blue Sky
Okay.
shout out,
Yep.
so we'll see. And one of the cool things about Rob is he is an incredible artist, and he does amazing layout as well. So good. So his games are beautiful. So beautiful they make me angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very good. And the one we're spotlighting this week is my absolute favorite of his games. It's called Space Bounty Blues. It's a GM-less, planet-hopping, neo-noir RPG for 3 to 6 players inspired by the greatest sci-fi bounty hunter anime of all time.
I wonder what it is.
I wonder what that is.
Couldn't imagine.
Anyway, but it's a beautiful, beautiful game. Go check it out. Go look at it. It's stunning. Like the visuals and like the art direction and stuff in it just like scream like Cowboy Bebop. Like it's 100%. Like it's just amazing. It's beautiful, beautiful game. It's the turn of the 25th century, and humanity has spread throughout the inner system. A network of colony clusters connected by transit gates make faster-than-light space travel possible. Of course, anywhere people go, crime goes with them. And when you can just blow jurisdictions at the punch of a hyperdrive, the man can't keep a pace. That's where bounty hunters like you and the rest of your crew come in with a license to run down and arrest the system's most wanted throughout all 6 colony clusters. Name your own price at nerdypapergames.itch.io.
See ya, Space Cowboy.
See ya, Space Cowboy. Yeah, it's a very good game. And it's awesome that it's made to be GM-less. It's beautiful, and it's name your own price. Like, you literally, like, go do, like, pause, and make sure you come back. Pause, and go and buy. It's just a great game.
Open up a new tab.
Yeah, right now.
And
While you
multitask.
continue, yeah. Even if you never plan to play it, it's like one of those beautiful games. It's like short and amazing and super simple and beautiful, and you just want to own it for inspiration in life. It's very cool. Anyway, I'm a little biased, sorry. All right.
I mean, he is our, like, highlighted designer of the
It
month,
is.
so-
Yeah. But I also just really, really love Cowboy Bebop. So
Yeah,
it's
same.
always like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah,
So
I
well.
need to go look at it, too.
Yeah, it's very good. All right. I think that's everything I need to say. So, mailbag number 1. Somebody read it.
You do it.
Oh, I got looked at by 2 people at once. That means I must read the first
It's
mailbag.
you versus 2 teachers.
Yeah. We both did that. Point. Go.
That would explain the kind of feeling I got. Hello, Kimmy and the crew of the USS Happy
Well,
Jacks.
that's got like that one.
Mm-hmm.
It's me, Eric from New Jersey. Again. Admittedly, I have anxiety that you are low on email, so expect a bunch to come through. My apologies for that.
No, don't.
And how dare you?
No, don't apologize.
No, it was-
please.
No,
Yeah, we're good.
no.
Thank
Keep
you for
them
writing
coming.
in. Yeah.
Though this one is something that I am seriously looking for some information. Well, I mean, I would hope that they're all things you're looking for information for,
Yeah.
but great. My Savage Worlds homebrew fantasy game is wrapping up after 30 plus sessions over several years. Amazing. And I started looking at what will replace it. While there is a chance that someone else may run something, I am not holding my breath, being a forever GM who is running 3 different monthly campaigns right now.
Living the dream.
I am going to stick to Savage Worlds because it is a system I know very well and enjoy immensely. I just decided to turn the dials to very gritty in the system by using certain setting rules and run some psychological horror. I've gotten a hold of the Delta Green adventure Impossible Landscapes, and I want to run that. I can adapt it to my system of choice easily enough. However, I've never run psychological horror like my good buddy Haster offers in this adventure. I have run horror games before. There are basics like describe, don't tell, aka don't ever give out a monster's name, and don't overuse the horror until they become numb from it. However, this is horror on a different level, even for Call of Cthulhu type gaming. It's meant to unsettle the players as much as it should unsettle the characters. Not in a grotesque way, it's not gore. Just things like child clowns and stuff like that, or playwrights who are never seen but write about the PCs as if they are in a play. So, have any of you done or been in a horror game like this before? What advice do you have in addition to standard horror game advice for running such a game? As always, I ask that you stay gaming, stay tipsy, and stay diverse.
What's up?
Mugs held high, Eric from New Jersey. P.S. To the listeners out there, the Happy Jacks people are good people. All of you know this. So please consider writing in letters because that is what fuels the show. If they will read the ramblings of an old fool like myself, and I have rambled on everything from the Diet Coke of horror stories to the death of a beloved friend and GM,
Yep.
I
they
remember
will
that.
read your emails, no matter how stupid, and it is not stupid, you worry they might be, with the dignity such a letter deserves. That feels like a threat. Go forth, write, and fear no darkness.
Except the
Alright.
darkness that we're going to recommend for
Yes.
this game because it should be unsettling and fearful.
Mhm.
All right, so we've all played in horror games. Pooja and I have played in a bunch of Call of Cthulhu together. So much Call of Cthulhu. So I feel like this is an interesting take though, because like a lot of people do just kind of cut to like gore things to like unsettle people. So like, what are some strategies to use?
So one of the things I've found really helpful, so I'll just preface this a little bit by saying I didn't know that I could GM horror, but apparently I'm okay at it, and I have unsettled some players within the bounds of what we had agreed to.
I'm not surprised by this.
Now, part of it was gore and like body horror kind of stuff, but I think it's important to remember things like body horror don't have to be gory. So, for instance, one of the villains I used, like in one iteration of a being who could turn insects into giant insects, this person looked human, but there were little differences. Like it turned out she had 2 sets of elbows, right? Or all of her fingers were 1 knuckle longer. And there were just little things that once they got close, they were like, oh, what? What's happening? Why is this? You know, so if you can take something and ride close to what you know, they'll find upsetting. And again, this is a huge call for making sure your lines and veils are very clear and that you're checking in. But if you do all those things, I actually think safety tools make your stories stronger and you can push farther on those areas because you've had a conversation about it and you know, oh, somebody's like, oh, I forgot to mention this. I should have mentioned it. You have the X card ejector seat to pause and encourage your players to do that. You don't want to like, you know, be enjoying your horror at the expense of someone else's comfort. Like there's just no reason to do that.
Yeah, the uncanny valley thing like works well. It's very good.
One of the things that always gets me, and I read a lot of horror, is like when someone's mouth, like, and they smile and their cheeks keep going, and like their smile gets wider and wider until it's a slash across their mouth. Like, that always like viscerally is like, and I love it so much. So definitely seconding what Jason is saying there about leaning into things that are like just a little bit beyond can give you that baseline. Also, one thing like I really enjoyed about our Call of Cthulhu game was like that there was a lot going on that we didn't understand and we're never going to understand.
Yeah.
So one thing about horror that I think is important is not to give your players answers to everything.
Right.
There should be a lot of unknown that can never be known.
Yeah.
I think a tricky part of that too, and I don't know that I've always hit this well, but a component of horror is things being out of the character's control, right? But you don't want it to be so far out of the control that the players end up like just throwing up their hands like, well, there's nothing I can do. You know, we're just in a roller coaster and here we go. You know, you want to feel like you can do something in the story, and, you know, maybe there are consequences, maybe there are points you're having to spend to keep going. But being able to ride that line of, like, there are things out of their control, but there are things they can do about it that, you know, like there's this line of, like, a movie like Paranormal Activity where the people in it are just fucked, right? There's nothing they can do.
Okay, I'm just going to clarify. Like, I'm not going to get any of your horror movie
I
references.
haven't seen it either.
I haven't seen any of the horror movies.
I can't watch ghost stories.
Yeah.
I have not seen Paranormal Activity, but I've had it described because I wanted to know if it was what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Versus like Ghostbusters, who figure out like it's a little scary at first, and then they figure out, oh, we could just shoot them with our proton packs and like put them in a box.
But that's
right?
not horror, though.
No, it's not. It's not. But that's what can happen if you give the horror characters too much power.
Oh, yeah, for
right?
sure.
Is now that's why it's not horror, is because they have control of their situation.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like, stuff in the kind of Cthulhu-verse, different games, like, a lot of the ones I think do it, quote unquote, right for me, are the ones that they can't fight back. Like, you've got a gun. Cool. You know, your yogurt dogs are not gonna, like...
Oh no, the yogurt dogs!
I don't know. That was a very specific reference. Like, Stu, when he was running the game, there were, like, these weird, like, hound things. I don't remember what their actual names were, but they were creepy, and, like, someone described it as, like, their skin was sort of, like, yogurty.
Oh.
And it was, like... And so we just called them yogurt dogs, but they were fucking terrifying. Because, like, you couldn't fight them. Like, and that's one of the things, like, you shouldn't, that powerlessness is something you need to find a way to capture.
Yeah.
Even if it's not from direct threat or something with gore, like, and I think that's one of the things that, 10 Candles does really well. And I would recommend if you haven't played 10 Candles, play that, because you can steal stuff from that and add it to your Savage Worlds game. The time limit thing.
Yeah.
Like
Particularly if you're in an in-person game. I'm not sure if this was an in-person group.
Yeah.
Probably 30 sessions, I imagine, is in person. But yeah.
Yeah, like the feeling of like there is a finite amount of time that you can't do anything about really ramps up kind of the anxiety for both players and player characters. So I think that would be something that I would like start kind of like, you know, if it's, you know, maybe it's not like the actual candles on the table, but maybe there's a clock that they hear. Maybe they don't know why. Like they hear like the big gong of a church bell or something every hour, but there's not a church around, or like all these things. Like you can start tying in these things that help them kind of mark like this, like keeping them aware of how long things are taking in game, and that can really lead to more anxiety and being unnerved by things.
You talking about the ticking clock actually reminds me too that one thing that I think can really like get your players to buy in on horror is description of your environment, description of your characters, and having characters that they believe should act a certain way and subverting that.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got like characters who are introduced as a certain, say, archetype or whatever, but then their actions become more and more like they start drifting away from that archetype.
Yeah.
And that's one that I think is fun because those changes can start off really small, and people as players, like you're just like, oh, you know, the DM forgot what the player was like or the character was like. And then it gets like more and more and more, and you're like, what is happening with this person?
Yeah.
And I like that sense of like when you go to somebody, you don't know. You don't know what you're gonna get back.
Yeah.
And that can be super effective, especially if you have player buy-in, to use their trusted NPCs for that. So like suddenly their mother
Yeah.
is like weird.
I'm just going to make some notes for the Sunday game.
I hate you.
No, and that's perfect because it makes them not only like distrust as NPCs, it makes them distrust the world around them.
Yep.
And the things they think they knew, and it makes them not want to talk to anybody else. And it just like, oh, suddenly they're like them against everything. And that's a very like horror type feeling. Absolutely.
Yeah, that isolation.
Yeah, the isolation, that's the word I was looking for. Very good.
Yeah. And to work up to that, so I found that really challenging to get, where it doesn't sound like the NPC, I'm just playing them wrong, or I forgot their personality, right?
Yeah.
So but like to get into that with like the crayon version of that is playing with like Celtic Fae kind of stories, right? Where they are beautiful and they have antlers and they have banquets and they dance and they whatever, and also you can't leave. You know, like there are all these little things, and that, you know, you sit down to eat and actually all the meat is raw. It's not spoiled, but it's raw.
Yeah.
And this beautiful prince smiles too big and there's too many teeth in his mouth.
Yeah.
You know, just the Fae are kind of a heavy-handed approach of what you two were describing, but it can be good practice for like, okay, how do I do that? And then how can I tone it down a little bit to make it even scarier?
Yeah. A lot of stuff, like kids are used a lot. And I'm not going to describe any like harm to children. So, but like a lot of times kids who are very quiet, and then you walk in a room and they like are all sitting still. And then the minute that you know, they see that you're watching them, they start playing. And then like the minute you kind of walk away and they don't think they all stop again. Like stuff like that, where it's like, oh, kids don't stand still.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is me like like venting a bit, but you know, things like that, or someone who's a very like caring character, like when, you know, that can be something you can use if the NPC or whoever it is doesn't realize they're being watched, and then like really caring character like kicks a dog or something like that, and then like turns around, oh, and then like, you know, the PCs are back talking to them, and look at the kitty, like, and it's like this very like duplicitous, but in a way that is very cold-hearted, that can be really used to a great effect too. Is like they're seeing a side that they're not supposed to see and is being kept from them for a very specific reason, and that can like make them be like, oh god.
And then also like, oh, well, they're cooking this thing and it looks really delicious, but the smell coming off of it is rancid.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you see this stew and it's beautiful and they're chopping up carrots to put into it, but then when you look closer, you see that bubbling up in it is, you know, something horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to trigger
Thank
anybody
you.
on the podcast, but like,
Yeah.
you know, something like that, where it's like, it starts off innocuous and then it's like, the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something that I meant to say also is ping all the other senses, right? Like, looking is great, but is there a smell? Is there a creepy recurring sound, right? Is there a hot gust of air over their arms? You know, is there a taste in the back of their mouth, right? That they can't get out.
Yeah.
And they keep like, every time they cough, it comes back. Like, what? You didn't eat anything that tastes like that. Why are you tasting metal?
Yeah.
Especially copper is good because
Yep.
it's that reminiscent of blood without having to have any.
Yeah.
You don't have to have any in the scene at all.
Yeah.
But if your characters are tasting copper, everybody's mind goes to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another thing is the flip side of that coin is take away senses.
Yeah.
Like you walk into a room and you don't feel anything. Like you're touching things, but you're not feeling anything. Or you're eating something, you don't taste anything. Or like weird things like that. Like where it's like there's senses that are that they should have, that they had a moment ago. Like if they step through a specific door and then a thing like becomes absent. And then they walk back through the door and it's back again.
Yeah.
And things like that can be used too. Another thing I really love, I'm not a proponent for secrets at the table, but I love in like doing horror or investigation scenes is when certain characters get certain information.
Yeah.
Because it immediately ups everyone's kind of anxiety and like curiosity and like feel of danger.
Yeah.
So as a GM, if you have like horrific things happening around the room, like Post-it notes are your friends.
Yeah.
Like write down, you notice that, they have too many teeth, and you hand it to one player. You don't say it out loud,
Yeah.
and then you have a weird copper taste in your mouth and you hand it to somebody else. And then they all wonder, and then like, are they going to talk to each other about it? And then like, it's just.
I've even put like, you have a weird copper taste in your mouth and you find you can't say anything about it out loud.
Yeah.
Something like that can be really, really fun.
Even if you're into props.
Oh, yeah.
Then making up, Stu made that awesome newspaper for the beginning of our Cult Cthulhu game.
Yeah.
A telegram, like little things like that. But like give them that weird bent. Like you find this note and it's kind of like, it's a grocery list, but in the bottom right hand corner is the sign of Hosthor.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff can be really fun for players, especially if you've got people who are like, I'm going to like without going into the secrets thing, like if you have one player who's investigating a certain area and that's where that item is, you can give it to them. So then even just those few beats before they bring it up to everybody else can get you that same like heightened feeling without, like alienating anybody.
Yeah.
Repeating things too.
Oh, yeah.
Like having a cat that they just see.
Why is that happening again?
Yeah, especially like if they've gone to a completely different city and it looks just like the exact same cat. Or a song that just kind of keeps showing up wherever they go. And just weird things like that. Even if you don't actually have a reason or a tie-in, like things like that just put them on edge.
I had an experience. It wasn't a cat, but I was doing something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, so this cat. And it was something I had described again. And I had written it down so I would do it word for word. But I didn't like indicate it very much. And one of the players was like, oh, you told us about this already. And I just kept going and did not acknowledge their comment. And then when I did it again, everyone was like,
Oh no.
like backing up from the table, like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
But like if you can repeat something word for word in a way that is like, and you're not going to acknowledge that, like that can be really unsettling.
Or they say it and you're like, did I? Oh. And just like keep going. And then when it happens the third time, they're like, oh, I get it. Just like like with
Yeah.
Jason. Yeah. Sometimes it takes like the third time from them to realize it's not just a mistake. And that's okay. Like,
I think
let that go.
that's an amazing point.
Yeah.
It's like, don't be afraid that like if they don't get it the first time.
Yeah.
Just keep, because it's that repetition, it's gonna take a little bit, and it makes them like once they make the first realization, they're going to be looking for those repetitions, and it'll take fewer times the more you do it. And it's something that I feel like if you use it specifically, it doesn't lose effectiveness for just having more than one of them.
Right.
Like if there is both the song and the cat in different locations or different times, and it's like, okay, and then one of them, like the cat could lead to nothing, but the song leads to something in the plot. And that can be really interesting as a player, just to like, which one of these is important? Are any of them important? Is that cat gonna come eat me at night? Like that anxiety as a player and as a player character can be so satisfying.
And the realization that you're not going to explain everything as a GM.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, for us, I'm a very I explain things. Anyone who watched Unsung Tales knows how much I explain things, like a lot. Here's the entire history of Middle Earth, friends. But if in a horror game, like Jason didn't correct himself, he didn't be like, I'm doing that because you are actually experiencing this thing again. It's totally different, but it's exactly the same. Like that kills it.
Yeah.
Like be like, oh, sorry, okay.
And do describe everything they should be able to see in the room. Don't just expect everyone to see what you're imagining because you've dropped a couple clues.
Right.
But you don't have to explain all the tricks.
Yeah. When they're like, oh, you said that already, be like, okay. And then just like don't be like that little bit of like suddenly like the third time it happens, like them all backing up from the table is them realizing also that Jason isn't holding their hand. Like Jason is not like showing them and explaining everything. And that's a little bit of like, too, that really like helps with the horror vibe.
I think it also makes me a little bit of the trusted NPC that you thought you could rely on. And now, and that is a tricky line to walk for a GM because you have to be a reliable narrator on one aspect of it. And you have to, so one of the things I love about a lot of PBTA games is the perception skill always says like, tell them honestly, like answer that honestly, right? Which it seems like, why did they have to say that? Oh, because GMs are used to just like lying to their players. I think NPCs can lie to characters, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
Do it. But the GM should never lie to them. And if you want to tell them you don't know the answer to that, there's no way you would know what you're asking me right now. That's an answer. That's an honest answer.
Yeah.
Right? Or like, is that blue clock running? You have to tell them, is it running or is it stopped? Or is it, you saw it click 5 minutes ago, but it hasn't, and now it's just clicked another minute? Yeah, just give them that, right? But because they're not actually in the world staring at the clock, like sweating and like trying to figure out what's happening.
Yeah.
So don't lie to them as the GM, but feel free to lay breadcrumbs and let that tension, let them wonder like, well, what did I not ask? Like what, You don't have to, you can't lie, you shouldn't lie to them, but you don't have to answer all their questions.
And that's like one thing that was actually going through my mind from yesterday's game, Tales from the Loop, when Dave was running it. He's like, look, when you ask a question, I'm going to answer it honestly, but I may not answer it fully. And that's up to your discretion as a GM. That like, how much information you give them is going to be dependent on where they are, who they are, what state they're in, where they, like, all these other factors.
Yeah.
So don't feel like just because they rolled well and they get to ask the question that they need 100% of the information.
Right. Like the game design of Apocalypse World, where, the bakers say, it's not interesting to roll to see if the bartender's lying to you. Just tell the players what the bartender said and then tell them the bartender is definitely lying to you. You can tell. Then see what happens. That's great in that type of game where it's you're playing out a power fantasy, right? Like whatever that flavor is.
Yeah.
It's dragons or apocalypse or science or whatever. Like, but horror takes a step away from that.
Yeah.
And you don't get every piece of information.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and what's an interesting thing is like, because players will ask all the time. I asked all the time. Like, are they lying? Well, they seem very sincere. They believe what they're saying is another way.
Oh,
that,
those are the creepiest.
Yes.
Seriously. Like,
Oh,
they believe what they're saying is like,
yeah.
The entirety of the story behind my most common username online is my answer to various perception checks. It's probably okay.
Probably okay.
Yeah. Oh, you rolled a 3? It looks fine.
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't imagine anything going wrong with it. It's a big patch of floor.
Yeah. Totally fine. Yeah.
Or on a terrible roll, telling them, okay, that grate looks like spikes are going to come up through it. Those paintings definitely have eyes looking out from them. And then their character has to decide, are they going to tell everyone else and sound like a crazy person? Or no, like they also meta know that they rolled poorly.
Yeah.
And so what I'm telling them, half the time it's true and half the time it's not. If somebody rolls a bad perception check in my game, sometimes I give them true information.
Yeah. You never know. Yeah. Sometimes it's just luck.
But that's not lying to them.
No.
I'm
no, it's
telling them
not.
what's in front of them.
Yeah. And then they have to decide if they believe it or not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Or like even farther from that, whether their character believes it or
Right.
not.
And to me, that's the essence of a perception check or an insight check
Yeah.
or an investigation is, can you trust your senses right now?
Yeah. And making the players doubt, well, not the players, the characters doubt their own senses, and thus the players doubting like their outcomes and the information that is being like collected from you and NPCs and from each other and all these things. That is key to horror. Like they should not be able to trust their, eyes, their ears, and a lot of the different things we've talked about so far have also kind of tied in with that. But not being able to trust the world around you is like the key of horror in most senses.
Speaking of not being able to trust, I just want to shout out that whole like how many times we like had these dream sequences in our Call of Cthulhu game
Yeah.
where like they were presented as real world awake time, and it was just like I was shook, like I was shaken as a player.
Yeah.
like
Oh, so you would play out a scene and then be told that it was a dream.
like you would find out, like you would just go and you would start to do a couple of things,
Yeah.
and then something really horrible would happen.
Yeah.
And like, or like, it's like, okay, it's that, and then there's that trope of like, you wake up, you wake up, you wake up.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that repetition thing again. It's
Yeah.
like, which one of these is really me awake?
Yeah, like not being able to tell, because we were going into like this like other plane, so we were
Oh.
like it was like Cthulhu, like horror, like Inception kind of.
Yeah.
We knew we were going to this other plane in our brains, so we were choosing to go there, but then it started getting muddled about which one we were in, and like we had memories from a bunch of them. It was very cool and weird.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that Stu did it right. That there's also the risk of like, you were in the holodeck the whole time.
Oh, yeah, no.
which is really risky.
Yeah.
Actually, Dave did a really good version of
Yeah.
that. Was it Dave or Adam?
Both,
I
probably.
forget. Like we had a great version of it here. But there is that risk of like, and it was all a dream. It
Oh,
just
no,
like
yeah.
pulls the rug out from under everything you were trying to do. But you all knew that you were like delving into the dream realm, and well, shit's gonna get weird. So like, that's great.
Well, and there was also like,
It was not a Dallas. We did not pull a Dallas.
A Dallas, yeah.
no, but like to key into that too is the amount of time that we were in it before we found out we weren't in the real world is also key there.
Yeah.
We weren't able to do, like, we didn't go and investigate a bunch of places and
Yeah.
then find out we were dreaming.
You didn't have hours of game time.
Yeah, that would have been
Exactly.
awful.
we're talking like at that point you're talking like 20 minutes maximum to have your players have enough time to relax and think they're okay, and then pull the rug out from under them.
Yeah.
And not feel like they wasted a bunch of like real world effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially if you can give them something from that experience that they can, like, okay, this thing you saw in the dream is now showing up in other places, and you have some background for it now. Like, you can actually do something with that, which is, you know,
Yogurt dogs.
yeah.
Not that we could do anything about that.
No,
as much as I
you
tried.
just
so
run.
hard.
Just run. That's all you could do, and hope that, yeah. Oh,
Like,
it was wild.
so many yogurt tags.
Yeah.
And then, like, the other thing that you can do that is not gore is bring dead characters back.
Oh,
In whatever form that ends up taking.
yeah.
for
Just
your
not
game.
like gooey zombies or whatever. But
No,
no, no.
yeah, you can just have them show up.
Yeah.
But
like-
maybe it's not.
Yeah. Or have them sort of start seeing them.
Mhm.
Like they think they're in a crowd and they're like, oh, that's them. And then they get, oh, no, where did they go? They're gone. Or like they see like in a mirror or in a picture. That's super unsettling always. It's super good.
If your group also has the, like, agrees to this level of buy-in, there's also a level where you can, like, jot down everybody's perception scores or whatever, and then roll it for them, right? And then tell them, like, you could even say, like, okay, Pooja, I'm going to roll your perception, okay? Boop. That looks like there's a trap over there, right? Because on some, like, I know if I am a player in that situation, I like removing the meta. You know, like, I try to separate that as much as any player does. You know, I want to operate separately from the fact that I know I rolled a 2, you know, but there's kind of a fun part of that of like, okay, the DM just rolled my perception and gave me information, and I don't know if it's reliable or not. But I know that the DM is being honest based on what they rolled behind their screen or whatever. But my lack of information as a player is still enjoyable because I agreed to that ahead of time. So, yeah.
I like, oh man. I'm sorry, I could talk about this all night. I love horror.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not as into horror movies.
Yeah, I'm not either, usually.
But I read a lot of it. Like, when I get in the mood, it's like, oh, I just consumed 6 horror books in a row. I'm never sleeping again. Like, it just, there's something so satisfying about that unknown and the loss of control. And I find that it's something you could ask your players about, because when we talk about things like resolve checks or composure checks and things like that, especially in settings like Call of Cthulhu, that sometimes, like, there are two sides to this. They have a really bad resolve check and you take control of their player for a time, or you have a really
Or
bad
character.
character.
Well,
for
I
a
mean,
time.
depending on your level of buy-in.
You take control of your character for a time, or you're like, okay, you have broken. Your resolve is now like effed. What do you do as a player for your character? And sometimes, like, a lot of times, it's like when you have like a really bad roll and your player is like, oh, this terrible thing happens, and it's worse than the GM
they're
ever thought.
way worse. They will come up with something way worse than you're thinking of, GM, because the GM is thinking about all of the NPCs and all 5 or 6 players at the table and juggling all this stuff in their heads. And, like, all I have to do, like, on Sundays even, it's not really horror, but, like, Sarah, you know, is, like, altering somebody's body and it triggers this thing that I have in my notes. And I asked them, like, okay, are you in control of this power yet? No? Okay, here's the next thing we have to do. And they're going to tell me when we're done doing that. And that's fun for us, is, you know, so that, yeah.
Yeah. I think too, Delta Green tends to be like more modern. Like a lot of times, like Cthulhu's like the 1920s, messing with technology and how it works and making it unreliable, tying back into what Pooja said, like having them get calls from people who are dead and things like that, where it's like, well, this could be a prank. Like this could be someone faking this, but they knew a thing that only that person would know.
I want to add a potential homework assignment. It is gory, but there's a bunch of other stuff in it in the movie Annihilation.
Oh yeah.
That is horrific. right? I mean, it is like the most chilling horror movie I've seen in a long time. Unsettling, disturbing, and there are gory parts in it, but there are so many other components that I think were just masterpiece of creation.
And I would highly recommend the book as well in
I never read
terms
the book.
of description and like just a really, really amazing skill in writing things that don't seem that bad at first blush.
Yeah.
So like, and then actually that reminds me, because one of the things that the book does really well is tie back into memories that the MC has.
Oh.
So it's this back and forth, and it makes you think and it makes you wonder, and it's like, is this a thing? Like having something from a character's past, like having them remember something as a like triggered by a thing that they're currently seeing.
Yeah.
Like you see this music box and it looks exactly like the music box that your grandmother gave you when you were 10. You like all of this, like it can just go on and on.
Do
and
you
on.
open it?
Like, do you open it? Is it playing the song that you remember from when you were 10? Or is it playing something very different?
Yeah. Why is it playing that song in reverse?
So stuff like that. But yeah, the book is also amazing. Also, that main character wasn't white.
Oh, that's important. Okay, I didn't know that.
With horror and stuff too, it's really important. I can't tell. I don't know if Impossible Landscapes has a version specifically for Savage Worlds, or if you're just like adapting it. I know Arctic Publishing has one, so I don't know if they're not. I don't know if it's Savage Worlds compatible, but like whatever you do, make sure you have things from your backstories of your PCs that you can weave into things. Like the mother or the cousin who died you were best friends with, or the music box, or whatever it is that you can start pulling into things that can be incredibly effective to making things unsettling for PCs.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like secrets from like their childhood. So if it's not like built into whatever you've got, make it built in. Like add write a question sheet. Like what was the traumatic moment you had as a child? Obviously, like you want to do lines of mails, like all that's carefully, but like your character, your PC, like what was a scary moment that like you had as a child that your adult self sometimes dreams about, or things like that. So all these things, that you can then start weaving into the story, even if it's not something that's directly tied to the big bad or whatever. Just like these forces trying to unsettle them would definitely try and tap into that, and it can be very, very effective.
Sometimes you can even accidentally fall into it. Like with the Supers game, I said, tell me about a recurring dream you all are having, and everyone described a nightmare.
Yeah.
It
We
was
had just been
amazing.
through a very traumatic event.
Yeah.
But the nightmares were, we each described our own, and they were all very intense in very different ways, which was also fun. And that can be even more so like in a horror game.
Yeah. And it can give you great insight to what the character finds scary.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're describing their nightmare, and it's something with like physical violence, okay, that's what they're scared of. If it's something about someone disappearing, then okay, they're afraid of loss. So all these things, like you can really like tap in, even if you don't use the exact things from their dream, you can start using like the overarching like theme of what they describe as their nightmare to be what you kind of like make swirl around that particular character. Getting like super heavy on the psychology here.
No,
But-
I love it.
And that's the amazing part about psychological horror.
Yeah.
It's like so much of this, so much of the stuff that we've been talking about, and the methods and the census thing and all of that, like it doesn't have, like it's ephemeral.
Yep.
It's just part of what is happening, and your player characters never have to find out the reason for it.
Yeah.
There never has to be a mechanic explained in that universe that explains what they were experiencing.
Yeah, as long as it's building the mood of the overall like monster you're going for, like you can feed it. You know, you don't have to explain why the floors were all sticky, right? Like, and the wall smelled weird. You know, like
why does the wall feel damp?
yeah,
Or, you know, for those of you who hate this word, moist.
delicious.
Yeah, it's cool. Like all of these things are tactics you can use with any system or horror setting too. Like whether you're playing like the actual Delta Green system, or you're playing Call of Cthulhu, or you know maybe you're playing Dresden Files in like one of their scary moments. Like these are all different things that you can like plug and play for all these different types of games too. So it's just a vibe. Now, getting more specific, Aaron in chat suggested Ashlaw, the Trajectory of Fear, as an excellent resource. I haven't read it, but I trust Aaron. Aaron's awesome from Queen's Court Games.
Sure, yeah.
And also the Debt Willers insert for Cthulhu Dark.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I would also, like, if you have the opportunity, go play some other systems that are horror-based.
Yeah.
Go play Trophy Dark. Play 10 Candles. Find something else.
Sorry, I know we have to move on to the next
That's
letter.
okay.
But on those other systems, Zombie World by Magpie Games, which doesn't have a whole setup for making it a super horror thing, but the thing that is incredible out of that is the bite deck. And so there's when you encounter zombies, you draw a card from the bite deck. There is one card in the deck that says you are bitten, finish the scene, and die.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or turn. You turn,
Yeah.
right? Like, figure out how you finish the scene and then turn. And that might be you get offed somehow, you arrange that, you go out in a blaze of glory, you whatever, but you don't shuffle that deck until somebody draws the bite card.
Yeah.
Then you put all the cards back in, shuffle it, it might be the top card again. It might be the bottom card. And you're just gonna keep drawing cards off that, and that sense of inevitability, hear that, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah.
Is terrifying.
Yeah. And if it doesn't include it in the system, make shit up.
Yeah.
Have a deck of cards where, if you draw the Joker, or if you draw a heart or something, or like, hey, if you roll doubles of something, not to like pick on you specifically, but then you have like a vision or something like that. If you can weave that into Savage Worlds like super easy. I mean, there's already the card element in Savage Worlds, so you can like, I feel like you could come up with something super cool with that.
Inevitability? I didn't enunciate?
I don't know.
Or maybe when I was pretending to be Mr. Smith, Agent Smith.
Yeah.
I wasn't enough Hugh.
Mr. Anderson. I can't.
Crap, what's that actor's name? He's also
Elrond. That's his name.
Elrond, famously in The Matrix.
Yeah, accurate. All right. Moving on.
Oh yeah, there's another letter. There's two more letters. Shall I do this one?
Yes. Mailbag number 2.
Hello, Kimmy and the Happy Jacks crew.
Hello.
So, I have a bit of a problem with player dynamics in one of my gaming groups. Rather than ask the HJ Discord community, I thought I'd write an email for discussion on the advice show. Is this the one that's anonymous?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure yeah, okay, cool. I understand wanting to write an anonymous. Weaving. Thank you. Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
This is a solid tactic. Ask for help anonymously. A few years ago, I wanted to put together a new local gaming group that played narrative-focused RPGs like PBTA, Fate, Trophy, and other story games. Most of my local gamer friends were pretty focused on D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, and other very trad RPGs. So I cast a pretty wide net. Lo and behold, I very quickly put together a group of 5 people with whom I had gamed with before, but none had played with each other. All but one of the players were very excited about story gaming. That one player, who I will refer to as Player X, was a little hesitant about story gaming, but was looking for a new RPG group and agreed to give PBTA a try. I thought this might be a good opportunity to introduce them to a different playstyle, and I hoped they'd come to love this style of RPGs as much as I do. After more than 3 years, this group is still together.
Wow.
I mean, that's
Congratulations.
incredible. Player X says that they very much enjoy playing with this group. However, it feels like they still haven't gelled with the other players. They also don't quite seem to get how PBTA and similar narrative-focused games are supposed to play at the table. For example, they don't seem to enjoy the writer's room approach to collaborative narration. They also are not particularly forthcoming when it comes to things like character establishment questions, setting up inter-character bonds, or weaving their characters' backstories with those of the others. They'll participate, but seem to only put in a minimum amount of effort and frankly don't seem to like it when other players make suggestions about things that happen to their character. They have told me that they find many PBTA moves are too constraining. I've explained that a deliberate design choice to enforce game genre conventions. Oh, that's a deliberate design choice. And they say they still don't like it. I've found that player X is most engaged in the game when their character is off on their own, interacting with the world solely through their character's point of view, the way you'd play a trad or OSR game. And they also seem to play characters who are motivated to solve problems with violence and regularly try to push conflicts into fights, even in games that don't emphasize combat or even include a combat system. Sure.
Okay.
So like Good Society, the Brawl.
That would be amazing.
I mean, Good Society and zombies is what I want.
Yeah.
Good Society and Cage Match.
Yeah. The Dowager would kick ass. Come on. We all know who'd
Yep.
win.
Yes.
The player is generally friendly and polite, interacts with the storyline, and seems to be enjoying themselves. That said, they've got a very sarcastic sense of humor, which can come off as mean-spirited. I know that some of their jokes have rubbed two of the other players the wrong way. Those players have mentioned it to me. I've also gotten a few not quite complaints about them from other players. Yeah, along the lines of, I don't really understand what player X is getting out of this game. And I've noticed that the most positive post-session feedback has been sessions where player X was absent.
Ah.
I know the answer is to have an out-of-character discussion with this player. And normally, I'd have no problem with doing that. But every other time I've had to have that kind of conversation, I'd be able to point to some specific problematic behaviors, such as talking over people, not respecting boundaries, regularly not showing up, or playing characters who are disruptive in a that's what my character would do kind of way. But in this case, it's pretty much your vibe is off, and I just don't know how to address that. I'm hoping that Kimmy and the distinguished panelists could give me some practical advice for this situation. Thanks. Keeping myself anonymous for this question. KMAFTQ. Oh, actually, can I? So right away, the playing characters who are disruptive. That's what my character would do. That's what's happening with those combat scenes.
Mm-hmm.
That you've got a backup already. And I know it's tough if they're like, well, when did I do that? Like, look, man, I didn't keep a log, right? Like, I'm not an asshole.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
Let me
keeping a
pull up
log
my
is
calendar.
not having you be an asshole.
no, but
Yeah.
you know, if you're
It comes off at you feel like a jerk.
yeah, or like, well, here, let me read you the dates and times in which you did this behavior.
Yeah.
Is like, if your goal is to get them to change their behavior, I'm not sure that after 3 years of gentle conversations, that's not going to happen.
No.
So what you have to decide, unfortunately, is are you ready to uninvite them from your game? Which is you don't have to explain anything. You don't have to say it's about the fights or it's about the vibe or whatever. You can just say, I don't think you're a good fit for this group. Now that sucks. After 3 years, that is way easier said. In my I realized I said 25 years the last time. I've been gaming for over 30 years. And in that over 3 decades, I have uninvited 2 people from a table. Mm-hmm. One very formally, one because they walked out of my house and never spoke to me again, which is fine. Like
Yeah.
that. But I mean, we both knew what was happening when they walked out of my house, but like,
That was a weird day.
it was. Kimmy was there. Were you there too?
I think I was.
You were there.
If it is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah,
of,
you were there.
Yeah.
that was so weird.
Which is another one that I'm not going to get into great detail about here on the show, but it was horrible. Both times were horrible when I prepped for it and knew that I had to do it, and this time where it was sprung on me, both times sucked. There's no good way to do it except the next week when everyone gets together and that player isn't there, you are going to feel high. Like, it is an incredible, like, the payoff of that very difficult thing is worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like I'm reading this letter and the whole thing in 3 years. Like, this person may really enjoy playing with your group of people, but they do not enjoy playing the games that y'all enjoy playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe like that can soften the blow. It's like, look, we are really only going to get deeper into story-based games, and it is obvious to me and the rest of us that you don't really enjoy those. We're happy to invite you back at a time when we decide to play more traditional RPGs. Never. But like it can be a way to soften it, but it really feels like there's that this is a rift that is only going to get worse going forward, not better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a couple of suggestions that are somewhat passive aggressive.
Oh, set the game to every other week?
Yeah, that.
Again with this.
Again. I liked Pooja's suggestion. It depends on how much free time you have, but maybe if you're someone who does also like more traditional games and you're open to having multiple games happening, or you know someone who is running a game, like, do the thing where it's like you go on a date with a person and you're like, oh, this person isn't for me, but you know what? I think you'd really love my friend. Which is actually how my uncle became my uncle, because my mom went on a date with him and didn't work out well, but she was like, I think you're gonna really like my sister, and then he dated my aunt and they got married and they had a bunch of kids.
I bet that happens more often than we think.
Yeah, so I feel like you could, like, if you want to keep this person as a friend, I can't tell from the email, like, if this person has become a personal friend as well as a gaming group friend.
It kind of doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't
It
sound
really
like it, but like, if you are in a small town, or who knows, like, if you've gotten this group together and there's not a lot of space between you and them, you might want to try and hand them off in a way that is kind of positive like that.
Yeah.
By finding another gaming group that they might enjoy more, that are playing more traditional games. Because it sounds like, other than not really like meshing with the games you're picking, it doesn't sound like they're a problematic player as far as like they are doing things. Like,
well, if they're initiating these fights where the group's trying to come up with another way to solve it, that's pretty disruptive.
Well, it's hard you can't tell from the email if that's something they're not realizing they're not supposed to do. Or, you know, because if they're not really understanding the mechanics and the way PBTA works, which is how it's described in the email, they may not realize they're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And they may just not have that many tricks up their sleeve, you know?
And it does sound like a lot of these things, like when we started, it's like a lot of these behaviors, it's like, oh, this sounds like people who aren't used to having to come up with detailed backstories. This sounds like people who aren't used to like intermeshing their character stuff with other characters.
Yeah.
But also it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like maybe one of the prompts you could use, like, I can't really write the speech for you, but if it's something along the lines of, you know, look, we are this group, everyone but you, don't say it like that, but like, the group is really getting a lot out of these intermeshed backstories, these back and forth moments, the collaborative storytelling moments, the, you know, really like sinking into the moves in our PBTA game and vibing with that whole genre and just like feeling it. And it seems like that's not a good fit for you, but we want to keep doing it, and it's not feeling like a good fit, right? So we're going to keep doing this, and we'll call you when we play D&D. Like, some version of that might be better.
Or just lie. Like, if this is not a person that you have a lot of outside personal connection with, it might be better for your feelings and their feelings to do the whole it's not you, it's us thing, and like lie and just be like, you know what, I'm super busy right now. We're going to stop after we finish this game that we're playing right now, this system. And yeah, I just don't know if we're going to have time to pick it back up. It's been a great 3 years. Thank you so much. Take 2 weeks off.
And then text everyone
and
else.
then text everyone else and invite them back.
Yeah, and you could tell them that you're doing that ahead of time,
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
like,
definitely give them a heads the other people a heads up.
Because they'll be like, wait, no, we want to get you in.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to... Now, it sucks, like, when you see them at the grocery store or something like that, or they might text you and be like, hey, you guys gaming anytime soon? Like, you're just going to have to keep lying about it.
But again, that's like, if you have connection with this person and you're going to see them, don't do the live version.
Yeah.
But if this is someone you will never see again, once you stop playing with them, that might be the easiest way to go. And I also, like, I get that I'm saying that this is a little bit of like a femi point of view, because sometimes being honest with a person can be physically dangerous for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, that's also, there's like some of that I know from like me factoring that in, which may not be a problem for you, Anonymous. I don't know. But that sometimes it's just easier for everybody involved.
I mean, yeah, like lying and then letting it take longer and longer before you respond to their messages.
Or just don't.
Or just
Yeah.
like,
and just
you know?
ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's no reason if you're like, hey, we're not going to play again.
You
Thanks.
also, yeah, you know, from that point of view, you don't owe them that.
No,
you don't
nothing.
owe them a whole detailed explanation and all this kind hand holding and whatever. Like, it, you know, unless you are wanting to maintain this friendship outside of the gaming group, there's no reason to twist yourself in knots about that.
If they have connections with other people in your group, this is another problem.
Yeah.
You don't want to lie in
Oh
that
yeah,
case.
if they're like banging someone in the group, then you should probably figure out another way to
Like,
do it.
Well, that and
Or
that's
if they're roommates.
Yeah. Oh yeah, or something like that.
Roommates,
Yeah.
yeah.
If that's the situation, you might want to just keep kind of just dealing with it.
Or rip the Band-Aid off and say, this isn't a good fit. I don't think you should come anymore.
Or that's the
But the
that's
problem with
hand-
that is, like, if they're dating or banging or roommates with someone else in the group, that other person's going to be in a weird situation too.
Well, yeah, you'd have to talk to them first, right? And say like, hey, we're going to uninvite your boyfriend from this thing, right? And
And that's where the handoff thing could be really great, though.
Having been that person,
Like, the handoff can be
wait, which person?
we're uninviting your boyfriend.
Oh,
nice. I have been.
I was not surprised.
I have been the not intentionally, but kind of unintentionally, the uninvited roommate.
Mm.
In retrospect, that was actually like a great situation for me personally, because like it was a very trad,
Oh yeah.
like murder hobo style group.
oh, sure.
Mhm.
And getting out of it was just like really nice.
Yeah.
But
At the time.
I mean, at the time I was hurt. Those were my friends.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
still seeing them all socially.
Yeah.
But and then my roommate would come home and tell me all about what happened at the game.
Oh, that's not cool.
It was great. I got a kick out of it.
Okay.
But like the handoff can be really good there because then they found a better fit and
Yeah.
they're both still like whatever, but it doesn't even have to be as close as them being roommates or banging.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like if they hang out socially
Yeah.
and you have lied to them, that lie is going to be exposed.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings
Mhm.
Yeah.
around, and that is just like so much
If,
mess.
if anyone in the group is maintaining a friendship with this person, you got to do it the hard way. That's
Or, I mean, and again, you don't, I guess there's like there's the version where you don't lie to them, but you also don't owe them a bunch of emotional labor.
Mhm.
Where you're just like, hey, we're going to end. I'm going to take a break after we're done with this game. And I don't know when we're going to pick back up. You've not lied to them and said, you know, I mean, you've sort of lied to them. But like, then if they ask later, if you pick a game back up with other people, they're like, oh, I thought you were ending. Yeah, you know, it wasn't a good fit. Thanks for playing for 2-3 years. And then you just kind of do that on the back end. Chances are they'll probably never even ask you or confront you about that. Because
Yeah.
most people, when they find out, are just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not invited anymore. Okay, cool.
Unless you're a femme person and a mass person.
Yeah.
yeah, it can be that. Yeah.
Sorry, I just
It's okay.
like 1,000
But
yards straight
I
there
just
for a
think
second.
I just want to just be super clear. Like, yes, you can have the bigger conversation and explain why, but you also don't have to. Like, it's not your job to manage this other person's feelings or to like let them down gently. So like you have to kind of manage your mitigating factors of
And your safety is number one.
yeah, well, yeah.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, minimizing harm is ideal. One quick little pet peeve that I'm going to throw out here is they're talking about how restrictive PBTA moves are. My tagline is, your moves are not the only thing you can do. They're the thing only you can do. The rest of the game is whatever you want it to be. It's not the only thing you could do. So,
And that is something that, like, even playing a lot of story-based games, people might not pick up on.
yeah.
And if that was the only problem that was
that's
happening with this player, I would say, like,
totally not germane to this discussion. It's just like, it bugs me every time I hear it.
Oh, see, I was going to fight back and be like, no, you're wrong. Like, they are absolutely very limited on purpose. But
Yeah, but they're not the only thing you can do.
right.
That move is specific, but it's not the only thing you can do in the situation.
I think you have to get more specific, but I think especially if you're someone who jumps to like fighting, because that's the thing you've been trained to do in D&D or whatever, just wanting to go up to and punch somebody in PBTA sometimes can be more complicated than you'd want it to be. And it does also depend on the GM, especially if you're playing the PBTA games that are not like designed for combat stuff.
Yeah.
Like it is easier in some of them. Like Masks is made to have like big superhero fights, so that one's easy to figure that out.
But so I guess there I would say like, okay, there's no move in Masks that says kill the bad guy, right? And that's because it's not the theme of the game. Right.
But I think that's what they're running into. Is like the player is playing in a way that they're not really getting the idea of a theme of a game.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to play like dungeon crawl fighty every time. So I think, I don't know. It can absolutely feel very restrictive when that you're jumping in and you're not bought in or you're not quite understanding the design intent of that particular PBTA hack. Sorry, it's not like I've been obsessing about PBTA moves constantly for the last 3 weeks as I design my own game. But it's like, and the last 3 days specifically, like writing and revising the wording of triggers on specific moves. Like it can be incredibly specific when a specific move triggers.
Yeah, moves should be specific.
Yeah. But we were even having this conversation when you guys did on last Tuesday when you guys were doing the Starscape playtest we're doing, because like one of the moves was too restrictive. It made it so you couldn't use it when you felt like you wanted to. Is the feedback on one of the moves. So sometimes it like with all the PBTA both of you have played, if you're feeling that about a move that's not perfectly written yet, like it can be very easy for people who are not as familiar with it or still haven't quite grasped the concept of it to definitely hit those walls. And instead of seeing them as like a trampoline to bounce off of or something to build on, just seeing it as a wall that they can't get over.
Yeah.
Sorry, that had nothing to do with the email, but
No, but that's
super interesting.
That was fair. Yeah. Excellent points. I don't know if we solved your problem, but
if we didn't write in another email.
I mean, I would like to know how this turns out personally. Not from like a voyeuristic way, but like it's just like I have anxiety about your game group now.
Want you to have fun.
Yeah, because I also remember the first time we played without that person there and the just elated vibe in the room. Like,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Honestly, like when they walked out, I felt elated. Like I know it was like stressful and awful for you, but I was like, all right. Like I didn't say it out loud because I'm not a total asshole, but
I mean, there is also that sense that, like, once that person was gone, everyone in the room stops having to manage that person.
Yeah,
And,
there's a
like-
huge sigh and
And, like, even if it's not somebody who's super disruptive, if it's somebody who just, like, in this case,
just
someone who
annoying.
constantly is trying to, like, go off on their own and rejecting any advancements from, or advances from other players, like, to... It sounds like your players are holding out their hands,
Yeah.
and their hands are getting slapped every time and have been for 3 years.
yeah.
And as players, like, that's exhausting.
Yeah, and to constantly be like, oh, I guess this person's going off by themselves again. Okay, then like having to like meta decide, okay, are we gonna do what we really wanted to do, or are we gonna try and follow them so we include them? Or it is super exhausting as a fellow player and as a GM, like you managing it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. Maybe start with an anonymous survey about the game to everybody in the group.
Sounds like they're past the survey.
No, I
point.
know, I'm just
There's
kidding.
definitely been surveys.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I mean, kudos for all the things you've done right.
Yeah.
This is not your fault that
Nope.
this is happening. That's probably one big takeaway that
Yeah.
I hope you can hear that from us. Like, you literally did everything I would have done, at
Yeah.
least, which means it was right.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important too, like, this is one of those situations where it doesn't sound like there's like a bad guy. Like, I don't think this player has necessarily done anything like wrong other than like what I think Pooh just phrased it best. They like playing with your gaming group, but they don't like the games you're playing. It's like when your friends all go to a restaurant that's like a type of food you don't like. And
Yeah.
you kind of go and you're like, but you're very clearly like not having the best time or not knowing what to order. And everyone's like, it's just a bad match. And it's like,
your friend who goes to Chinese food with everyone and orders a cheeseburger.
yeah. It's just like,
It's, like,
okay.
wild.
I mean, if they have a cheeseburger, wild. But,
Sure.
You know.
But in that situation, it doesn't affect everyone else at the
right.
table.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if they're insisting everyone should get cheeseburgers,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like your friend who just isn't into it, who like no matter what restaurant you go to
Yeah.
is always like, oh, do we have to do this now?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, dude, like maybe different different things are better for you.
I will admit that when I did like a couple of like the kind of like when I was super into different parts of fitness at different points, I was like doing Whole30 and it was like I can only have specific grains and no legumes and you know, it's just like, and then I'd go to restaurants with people and it was just like a thing. And
Wow.
it was never like awful, but it was a little annoying. And I'd have to ask the waiter a bunch of different questions. And it's just like,
horrible.
yeah, it's so annoying. And it's just kind of like, it doesn't ruin the night, but it sort of just is like,
Not for you.
well, right. Exactly. It's like everyone's just a little put off by it. And like we keep going, but it's like, or you're like, oh, I can't go to that restaurant. No, I can't go to that restaurant. I can't go to that restaurant. It's just, maybe don't go to restaurants with your friends. Like,
Right.
Like, I mean, like the only problem I have is that now I've been gluten free for like 12 years. Oh, wheat, I miss you. But like even then, it's enough of a problem where I'm like, but then whatever. Just not to completely derail. It's like it's an annoyance. It doesn't have to be an annoyance. This is supposed to be fun for everyone. And
Yeah.
if it's just one person who's a bad match, release them back into the ocean of TTRPG groups.
yes.
Yep.
Swipe
Yeah.
left or
We're-
right. Which one
we're-
do you do if you don't like it? Left?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's left is not like.
Rejected?
Because
Okay.
that's what I put in demigods, and I hope that's what that means. I looked it up at the time.
Okay,
I
then
think it's swipe right for a match.
For a match? Okay.
And swipe left for no match.
Yeah.
I hope. Jesus Christ.
Oh, you could write a poem or a song about how they're
Don't
not a
do
good
that.
match for your song,
Don't do
for
that.
your game. Send that to them.
Yeah.
Flowers with a like very clear card that says, please don't come back to my house ever to play games if you're playing. If you're online, you could just never send them the right Zoom link again.
Just block them.
Oh, good. Thank you, James V. I was now anxious about this. So,
Okay. Yeah. Left. So yeah, right is matching, left is no match. Okay,
yeah,
good.
good.
So these are all terrible ideas. Don't do any of those.
But I do encourage you to resolve it. Don't just tough it out and live with it. One way or the other, if you have to lie your way out of it because it's dangerous, do that. Like, whatever you have to do to get out of it, get out of it. Like, get out of that situation. It's not worth all of this time and effort that all of your group is putting into the game. And I know it's kind of unfairly landed on your shoulders, and that sucks, but talk to the rest of your group. Tell them what you're doing. Maybe just one-on-one with everybody and be like, or if there's like a couple in the group or whatever, you know, like talk to them and say like, look, gang, I'm planning on inviting this person. Are we on the same page? Right? And that's like the non-explosive version that I did. We all had met with the GM at the time, and he was like, look, I think we have to uninvite this person. And we all did it together, like as an intervention.
Oh.
It sucked. It was the wrong way to do it. We were all like 25 or whatever.
Oh yeah.
It's like
That's even worse.
we were bad at everything. And yeah, it just sucked.
Yeah.
So
No, yeah. I mean, I could see taking that if it's like a person who's been your friend for a really long time and you're hoping to continue the friendship afterwards.
yeah,
If that's not that, don't do that. Just send a message. You don't have to do it in person or face to face. Like, this isn't like it. You don't owe them that. There's that emotional labor on for yourself is not required for this, probably, unless like surprise, it's like your cousin or something. Don't do that. But yeah,
Well, it did sound like the letter writer hadn't met any of these people
Yeah,
before
yeah.
that, so at least we know that they're not knowingly related.
yeah, they're not family. Yeah.
I mean,
Knowingly.
no, yeah.
Okay.
All right, mailbag number 3. Okay, it's my turn to read, huh? Hey, all. I thought I'd share something that happened in the most recent session of my Monster of the Week campaign. Sometimes the dice can tell you truths about
this
your
Clara?
world. It's not, but it applies. The Monster of the Week was a siren. While investigating, the party was given some video of the siren singing. I had everyone roll to see if the song in the video affected them. The entire party rolled 10 plus, complete success. They succeeded so hard that we interpreted that the siren song simply had no effect if it's not live.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Later on, they tracked down the siren at a rave. She got up on stage and started singing to the whole crowd. Then the heavy hitter among the PCs confronted her, and she sang again, trying to target him. He rolled twice to act under pressure. One when she was singing to the room generally, and one when she was targeting him specifically. Again, he succeeded both times with a 10 plus. It was a banner day for dice rolls. The character's an angel. Based on the die rolls, we decided that clearly angels are immune to siren songs. I don't know if they'll ever encounter a siren again. If they do, we now know that the siren songs don't work over video and don't work on angels at all, because that is what the dice told us. Mini Painter Jen.
That's awesome.
I love
That's
that.
so cool.
Yeah. And just like being open to run with that and not getting frustrated and be like, oh, what? Now my monster can't do anything. Like, first of all, it's PBTA. You could use a hard move whenever you want.
Yeah.
But to let the dice be part of that storytelling thing is really fun.
And it opens you up to all kinds of different interpretations, like based on what the dice rolls are. If the group had all succeeded with 10 pluses except one person who like rolled a 6 minus, and then it's like, okay, why is this person specifically affected for video when no one else is? Are they specifically more susceptible? Like if your heavy hitter, your angel, was the only one affected, it's like, are siren songs super effective against angels? Like it's a fun thing that you can make go a bunch of different ways. I love that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to prep all that ahead of time. It actually would be a little less fun if you had decided how it affects everyone ahead of time, because like now you can't play into this situation that the dice helped you create.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like a long callback, but our hedge mage situation, where like Stu had this amazing, like super powerful mage that like, I am no mere hedge mage. He like says this right before we start combat, and we just like annihilated him in like 4 rolls. It was very like
Before you got a turn.
yeah, like before he even got a turn. Like also don't give your players like rhinos. They're very effective. But yeah,
Or do.
yeah, the dice 100% decided, no, he's totally a
Fuck
hedge
this
mage.
guy
Yeah,
in particular.
yeah, yeah. Like he's not powerful, and no, he totally. This character that was supposed to be an amazing, powerful like mage ended up just being a braggart who couldn't actually do anything. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome way to play off. Like sometimes the combat is just going to like, it's easy to, when you're a GM, kind of like pull your punches a little bit if like the player's dice really hate them that day. But sometimes it can be really hard when they succeed super well to still make it feel meaningful, or to turn that like what was supposed to be or like big poster child battle
Yeah.
into something else. Like the pivoting in like that, it's like, oh, well, you had all this setup, and it turns out, like, that dude was just a con man. And, like, his reputation was such but he actually had no power.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff can be fun to play with at the table, especially like if you're used to improv or things like that, like where it's like, well, moving in a completely different direction now.
Yep.
Or like, oh no, their patron deserted them at the last moment.
Yeah. He's carrying his diploma from the Wizards College, and it's clearly a forgery.
Yeah. Do we have any like Nomir Hedge Mage merch?
Oh, we should.
Oh, yeah.
What if it was like a shirt with the like image of the hello I'm right, and then Nomir Hedge like in like handwriting font?
All right. I like it. I like it. I've been obsessed with designing merch lately. It's so much fun. All right. Anything else? We agree. Dice are amazing. And I think that's why we play role-playing games instead of just doing improv games, because sometimes the luck and the randomizer, whatever it is, just adds so much to it.
And I would say PBTA GMs, don't be afraid to use your hard moves. They're there for a reason. But when you can let the dice sing, that's really fun.
I mean, it's that whole meme, right? Where like it's the D&D meme about how like the fighter is trying to hit the orc and like critically fails, and then the orc critically fails, and they end up married.
Yeah.
That's great.
You swing your axe, you awkwardly caress his shoulder.
Yes.
Like, wait a minute, what's happening here?
This game just changed. Okay.
Is this something?
Yep.
I mean, we're talking about half orcs now. Look, you brought me in. You know what I am.
We did. We did. Yes. Oh.
Which actually, I mean, yes, if you're going to do that much of a pivot on your tone, make sure you have player buy-in. But, or maybe just hand them the meme.
The meme. Yes. The meme. All right. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us for season 32, episode 13 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Please support our amazing indie designer of the month, Rob Iber. Aber. Sorry, I keep doing that wrong. But I love you anyway. Nerdypapergames.itch.io. Thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. You can join their amazing ranks and see all the awesome new organization of the Patreon and all the new tiers and stuff at happyjacks.org/Patreon. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Jason.
I'm Pooja.
And today we're going to leave you with a song by the Merry Wives of Windsor called 500 Miles. And it is a mashup between the Proclaimers 500 Miles and like the traditional version of 500 Miles.
Oh, that's fun.
It's very fun.
Yeah, it's like an old pub song, right? Like,
well, the 500 Miles is like it's like a westerny folk song.
Oh.
No. So,
okay.
yeah, it's the If You Miss the Train I'm On.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one with the Proclaimers.
Right.
Da-da-da-da, which is like super fun to sing and
Yeah, I
at a
bet.
concert ever. Like everybody starts doing it. It's very fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, so flash from my past. Merry Wives, 500 Miles, super fun. Yeah, and we will see you next week. All right, bye.
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 If you miss the train I'm on, you will know that I am gone. You can hear the whistle blow 100 miles. Lord, I'm one. Lord, I'm two. Lord, I'm three. Lord, I'm four. Lord, I'm 500 miles from my home.
When I wake up, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the one who wakes up next to you.
And when I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the one who goes along with you.
And when I get drunk, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the one who gets drunk next to you. And when I haver, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the one who's havering to you. And I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more, just to be the one who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. Da, 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 da.
and from the work I do, I'll pass almost every penny on to you.
Not a penny